What a big opportunity coming up this weekend for Duke football taking on Virginia. Yeah, who would have said going into the year that a Duke versus Virginia football game would have massive stakes?
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man. The Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thanks so much for being here with us today on Friday, November 14th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. On today's show, we're going to talk about this Duke football team, a big game coming up tomorrow against Virginia. Don't lead off with football too much this time of year, as we know how crazy and excited people are about this Duke basketball team. We'll get to them a little bit later in the program, but big game coming up Saturday for Duke football. You're listening to us wherever it is that you get your podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the feed, give us a 5-star rating and written review, and also know that you can watch our show each and every day on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video, share it with your friends. We're on X at LO_Blue Devils, also on Instagram and TikTok as well. So without further ado, let's bring Conor O'Neill into the program here today. It's good to see you, my friend. Hope you're doing well and excited to talk about, as I teased there in the open, a huge Duke and Virginia football game, not men's basketball.
Yeah, I think in your intro you said something about who, and I got to thinking the Virginia Who's.
Right. Exactly.
Freudian.
Yes. Now, I mean, look at the fact that, we've seen so many Coach K, Tony Bennett matchups on the sidelines over the years. And I think back to just some big plays in the basketball series between these two teams. Now we're talking about them going head to head on the football field. I can remember a few seasons ago when they were both kind of in the same spot looking for a head coach. Virginia goes for Tony Elliott. Duke goes for Mike Elko. Duke's had another coaching change since. But here we are, these two teams with a shot to continue in their chase for the ACC title game opportunity.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that I hadn't thought about that because Duke is clearly on the Manny Diaz era. But yeah, that was one of the storylines a few years back was reportedly and allegedly Tony Elliott had offers from Virginia and Duke and chose Virginia. My reporting has said he did not actually have an offer from Duke. I think that offer was coming in due time, but he picked Virginia when that offer was on the table. Yeah, it's funny to look at the trajectories of them. They were both, that they're going to be tied together anytime you're in a head coaching search at the same time as a conference member. And I'll be honest, I did not think Tony Elliott had this type of season in him.
Right.
It always comes with the obvious. That program had an unspeakable tragedy happen to it with 3 players murdered. But at some point you have to evaluate the results without that being the only storyline that you talk about with Virginia. And this had not been a very good football team for the last 3 seasons. So they went out and built a team through the portal and with a defense that had been steadily improving over the last couple of years. And it's all come together with already 8 wins this year.
Yeah, I was trying to go back and exactly recall because you're right. The conversation had been very much so like, okay, do we move on from Tony Elliott? Is he on the hot seat? But just to throw the numbers out at folks, the 3 years prior to this one, again, an 8-2 start in 2025 that they're off to 3-7, 3-9, 5-7, the mark for Tony Elliott at Virginia. That's not good, to put it simply. And here they are all of a sudden in a really good spot going into this game. I want to talk about kind of the big picture of it all and then focus more specifically on this game. And obviously the conversation is the craziness of the ACC so far this season. There are 5 teams with 1 loss within conference play, and not to confuse everybody at all, but it's so on brand for the ACC to have another layer of, wackiness and confusing things here. Virginia also lost to NC State in a non-conference game that is just so interesting. I know that you covered one of those recently with Wake in North Carolina from a few seasons ago. 5 teams in the mix, and these are 2 of the teams that still have it in front of them to go to Charlotte and play for the ACC title.
Yeah. Run through all the tiebreakers that you can. It gets a little less confusing because we've got this game and we've got Pitt is one of the other one-loss teams, and they play Georgia Tech. I think that game's next weekend. It'd have to be next weekend because Georgia Tech plays Georgia.
In the last week. Yeah.
So they'll thin out a little bit. It'll get less confusing. There's no way in hell that we'll have 5 one-loss teams all tied when the regular season ends. Now, if all of the one-loss teams lose, or if 4 of the 5 one-loss teams lose, then we're dealing with a crazy tiebreaker that brings in all the 2-loss teams in the ACC. Like, that's when Miami has the door reopened for it. SMU could have the door reopened. Well, no, Louisville is the one with 2 losses.
Yep.
See, I'm already confusing myself trying to talk through it. Basically, from the Duke perspective, what you need to know is if Duke wins its last 3 games, if they finish 7-1 in the ACC, I don't know of a tiebreaker scenario where they would get left out. They would be, if they're in a 3-way tie with 1 loss, and whoever is in that 3-way tie with them, I think Duke would have a tiebreaker where they're one of the top 2. And if you're one of the top 2, it does not matter one bit whether you're 1 or 2. You just have to be 1 or 2
in the game. Yeah.
There's no advantage whether you finish 1 or 2 in the ACC. Maybe you can say you're the 1 seed, but there's literally no advantage. It's not like the ACC basketball tournament where the 1 seed plays one day,
right.
None of that.
Yeah.
So
we get to pick what color jersey we're wearing first, like that. And at the end of it's insignificant at that point.
Well, the jersey enthusiasts, I know that they're passionate about their superstitions with the jerseys. I'm grateful that we're not in the place that we were in college football like 7 or 8 years ago. I felt like I had to get the jersey tweet out as soon as the specialists came on the field. Now they put those tweets out on Thursdays every week that say, all right, here's what we're wearing, and everybody gets really fired up about it. And I see it and say, okay, that's a cool looking jersey, and move on.
Yeah. Duke's in blue, the other teams in, and we're able to move on to the next thing. So 5 teams still in the hunt with 1 loss: Georgia Tech, Virginia, Pitt, SMU, and Duke. What I find to be significant here as well, Connor, and to let people know the significance of it all, of the 5 teams, Duke is the only one that still has 3 conference games that they can't get beat. They've got to go, they can't lose in this stretch. All of the other 4 teams have either non-conference games left or they've got a bye week kind of mixed in there. So it's Duke, the team that's in the most tricky position here, because every week left, they've got to play a conference game.
Yeah, and what goes hand in hand with that is not only does Duke have 3 ACC games left, they have 3 games against rivals, for better or worse. I mean,
sure,
we can go back and forth on whether Duke-Virginia is a rivalry. I think of it as one because they're in close-ish proximity, especially close proximity based on what the ACC is now, all coast conference.
Yeah.
And they have a rich history. It's not like you're going through the series history and it's like, oh, they've played 5 times and they're in the same conference. They've played, I think it's over 50 or 60, maybe over 70 times. And the other 2 are against in-state teams. Like North Carolina and Wake Forest would like nothing more than to ruin Duke's season a little bit and cost them a trip to Charlotte by beating them, especially a Carolina team that, no, they're not atop the ACC, but they've at least beaten 2 ACC teams lately. Like they're not the same train wreck that they look like they were in September. And Wake Forest has won 4 of their last 5. They're a little bit hot, and they've shown tremendous improvement throughout the year.
I'm excited to see it all come together. And it starts obviously Saturday with this big game going on between Duke and Virginia. So let's go ahead and we'll step aside for a quick moment. When we come back, we'll get into the specifics. And still coming up later, Duke basketball, they're in action tonight, taking on Indiana State. Next game up for John Scheyer and company here. So we'll continue in a moment on Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. FanDuel is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Conor O'Neill is here with us. We're talking Duke football. The Blue Devils get set for a big one in ACC play this weekend, taking on Virginia. A few more losses in the non-conference than Duke would like to have this season. But all of that doesn't matter. It's insignificant when we look at this game coming up tomorrow on Saturday when Duke will host Virginia. The biggest storylines going into this one, where would you start, Conor?
Coming off the loss to UConn and coming off of what Duke's defense has looked like the last two games, I think it's got to be, can Duke's defense play better? Quite simply. There's a lot more that goes into it. Obviously, they're doing some things wrong. They're also doing some things right, but they're doing more wrong than they are right. And it's a Virginia team that started the year hot offensively. Like Virginia's first 5 games, everything you wanted to talk about with them was their offense. Even the game they lost to NC State, they went up and down the field on the Wolfpack. The main reason they lost that was because of an interception in the end zone in the last minute or two. But their offense has not been hot so hot lately. The last 5 games, Virginia's really been winning games with their defense. It'd be a little shocking. It'd be very disappointing to see Duke gashed by Virginia. And that's whether they have backup quarterback Daniel Kalen playing or Chandler Morris. Chandler Morris got knocked out. He's been a great 6th-year addition. He's heady and a coach's son. Came from North Texas where he had put up gaudy numbers last year. He got knocked out in the second quarter against Wake Forest over the weekend, and he's in that concussion protocol where he's going through the process. I don't think anybody's actually said the word concussion, but when they use the word protocol, you kind of get the sense of what's going on.
I saw Tony Elliott refer to it as like an upper body issue or something like that. It's like we saw the replay. Term. We saw exactly what played out, man.
He doesn't have a shoulder injury. I'll tell you that much. You don't get a shoulder injury when your head bounces on the turf. So Duke has to leverage the football better. They have to tackle better on the perimeter. It's a little frustrating watching Duke because they have talent on defense. Chandler Rivers, Wesley Williams, Vincent Anthony Jr., Aaron Hall, probably all are going to be taking snaps in the NFL. And so it's maddening to see it. I get it. If you as a fan think you're maddened by it, imagine being a coach and coaching them throughout the week and then watching them make mistakes during games. But their defense has to be better to win this game.
And I think it's, that's the first step is performing a little bit better. You would like to feel good about those chances if you're going up against a backup quarterback. The guy's a starter for a reason, right? You would think that it's going to be a step down, but we clearly have seen people in the sport take advantage of those opportunities and whatnot. So on the offensive side of the ball, though, I think taking care of the football has got to be of the utmost importance. It remains amazing to watch this offense week after week after week find a rhythm so easily. There have been so many teams over the years, Duke specifically, where it just feels like you're lucky to get 2 or 3 good drives put together in a game, that's the norm for Duke when they start the game, is to be able to put together a good drive. The turnovers have just been so costly in so many big moments.
Yeah, and that's kind of the weird thing about this matchup. Of these teams are atop the ACC, and they're both coming off one-score losses in which they turned the ball over 3 times and didn't have a single takeaway.
Yeah.
Virginia actually had fumbled 10 times before playing Wake Forest and hadn't lost a fumble yet. And they lost, I don't know if it was all 3 times they fumbled or if they fumbled more than 3, but they lost 3 to Wake Forest. So you figure Virginia will have its hands tighter on the football a little bit. They'll be holding on to it a little bit better. And you figure a Duke team that really, like, I'm going through the schedule here and going back through my mind, like, they didn't turn the ball over at Clemson. They had 1 really costly turnover against Georgia Tech. I'm not remembering any turnovers that they had against Cal, Syracuse, or State in the 3 games before then.
Yeah.
So really, like, 1 turnover in a 5-game span, and then you commit 3 of them, and that's how you lose a non-con game up at UConn.
So take care of the football, simply put, because nobody's been able to kind of be able to stop this offense. And at this point, the sample size is large enough that, if it hasn't happened yet, someone's got to put together a heck of a game plan in order for that to be the case. So big one on Saturday. Again, our friends at FanDuel currently have Duke favored by 5.5 over Virginia, and over-under set at 58.5. I think we're preparing for just an all-time classic, hopefully a big game for Duke. Again, Duke and Virginia being the 2 teams here that we're looking at, Connor, but a game that in some ways could go either way. It's currently, as you could see, a 1-possession game here for both sides.
Yeah, this is either way, a Duke blowout or a Virginia blowout. I'm not sure I can see a pathway to it. I think this is going to be a tight game. If it winds up being a 2-score game, then if so facto. I don't see much separation here. Virginia's defense is good enough to where I don't think they're going to just give up 48 points to Duke. I don't know if Virginia's offense can go up and down the field constantly against Duke. And then that maybe that's a little rose-colored glasses. Maybe that's believing too much in what Manny Diaz and Jonathan Packey tell us about what they're fixing with the offense, with the defense this week. But yeah, I really see it's hard for me to separate seeing what's on the screen here, which is, like a 31-28 type of game, maybe, 34-27, something like that. I think there will be points, but I think it's going to come down to possibly which team has the ball last.
Yeah, and then in that scenario, as we'll get ready to head to our next break here in a moment, Connor, but in that scenario, coming down to possibly kicking, possibly special teams, which for both these teams, they've had highs and lows. I think it's interesting on the Duke sideline. Todd Polino this season is already up to 5 missed field goals, which is his season numbers previously. You look back at what he was able to do in 2024, going 15 of 20, 2023, 18 of 23. He's already at that 5 missed field goal total. Seems to be off in a couple of different instances here. And so, wouldn't be surprised at all if this does come down to a few big kicks for both teams.
Yeah. Really, I thought Duke was setting up to at the least kick a field goal against UConn and go to overtime before the Darian Mensah strip sack. You think about it, he's had 1 pressure kick in a month or longer. I think the Georgia Tech field goal was a chip shot after Duke couldn't score. The Clemson one, though, was a big kick. The yardage escapes me, maybe something like 37 or 40 yards to tie the game at Clemson at 38. So that's a big one to build on. He had to win a competition, an in-season competition going into that one with Cosme Salas. So I know Duke fans will be nervous if they see Todd Polino walking out there to attempt a game-winning field goal or game-tying field goal. That's normal, but that'll be something to keep in mind.
Yeah, setting up for a classic, man. Super excited to see how this game comes together for the Blue Devils. So going to be fun. You can watch the game tomorrow afternoon. And, of course, check out Devils Illustrated for all of the football coverage. So we've been talking about it all week long here on Locked On at Blue Devils. All right, we'll step aside one final break here on the show today. And then got to dive into basketball. Big game coming up a little bit later tonight. Duke basketball set to take on Indiana State. Our show today is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. That's right. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Duke football, I always got to talk about the defense. We've been highlighting the offense a whole lot lately. So let's talk about some of the deliveries Duke has had this season defensively, and it starts with Chandler Rivers and VJ Anthony. These guys, week after week, when the pressure is on, they find a way to come through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, the performances aren't a fluke. These guys are on a streak. And just like Chandler Rivers and VJ Anthony have been delivering for Duke football, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash streaks, you can save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. DoorDash is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, got to talk basketball now. Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated hanging out with us on today's show. Duke 3-0 on the year, and now they've got a game coming up tonight against Indiana State. Duke kind of steps it up a little bit in competition. Really cool to watch the Army game unfold and the pageantry of it all, and Coach K being celebrated and recognized. But as I said, after the game took place, you got to remind folks, Connor, that according to KenPom, that's one of the 25 worst teams in the entire country that Duke played in Army. Now you're going against a top 200 opponent in Indiana State. Western Carolina was 228. Indiana State right now in the 160s. So excited to see this one play out and for Duke to be back there in Cameron Indoor.
Yeah, I got to update my preview because I was doing the numbers earlier this week and they were like 188. So they're even getting a little better.
Maybe it was 188. Maybe it was. I think you're on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
They got a road win this week though. They won at SUIE.
Yes.
Confirmed
188. I misspoke there. I had 168 in my brain for whatever reason. 188.
You're good.
Top we're in the same boat.
Everybody's got a little dyslexia, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this doesn't look like it'll be the same type of 50-point blowout. Everything about the Army matchup to me screamed that Duke would be able to have a pretty easy time of it when you look at an Army team that takes more than 50% of their shots from three-point range, and you think about Duke's positional length and think about Army not having the biggest size in the country, and Duke is able to put a 6'7" guy out on a 6'2" guy who's trying to shoot a three-pointer. It's really hard to shoot threes when you're matched up against somebody who's 5 inches taller than you and can just elevate vertically and doesn't even have to be right up on you and still affect your shot. So it's going to be a different challenge. Indiana State's from a better conference. The Ohio Valley is a really good conference, so a really good mid-major conference, obviously. And it's going to be kind of that last tune-up, right? Like Champions Classic next week. Yep. You'll want to see Duke improve on some of the things that we haven't seen so far. They've got to clean up offensive rebounds. They got to start better, right? Like the Army game was a 50-point blowout. It was a 9-point game with like 4 minutes left in the first half.
Yeah.
That doesn't inspire the most confidence. And it's a Duke team that the 3 games that they've played against or against power conference teams, if you include the 2 exhibitions, which didn't count. I think it was leading by 1 against UCF, down 6 or 7 against Tennessee, and then down 1 against Texas. So It's good to be a second half team, but you also want to win for some first halves here.
Yeah.
So
you don't have to make it difficult on yourselves. There is a world in which you can start off a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think part of it is Duke is physical and they're going to wear some teams down. Like it's probably harder to guard Cam Boozer if you've played him as opposed to when you're starting out the game. But yeah, Duke will want to on some teams early.
And so they've got a chance to do that here against Indiana State a little bit later. A couple of people have been saying all week long that, there's no Larry Bird on the opposing team, their most famous alum there. Crazy. I mean, Bird played at Indiana State from 76 to 79, and here we are. Larry Bird's 68 years old, and he's still the guy we're pointing to for Indiana State. No shots. Someone just step up. I mean, let's find this next great player for Indiana State so someone else can be recognized.
So I would argue they had him, and the current climate is why they didn't have him anymore, because this is actually where Jake LaRavia came to Wake Forest from.
Okay, all right.
He was in Indiana State. He was in Indiana State for 2 years, and I think he was like second team all OVC, and then transferred to Wake Forest. And I mean, he transferred to Wake Forest thinking Wake Forest and Jake, I think both thought he would have 2 years with Wake and get a Wake degree. And then in Steve Forbes' quote unquote second season, I mean, his first team, he recruited in COVID and just had to get anybody who would sign up to play for Wake to come to Wake. But Jake blew up and had a all ACC type of season and went to the draft and was drafted 20th overall. So he definitely made the right decision. But you think about a guy like that was toiling at Indiana State for 2 years before coming to Wake Forest.
Playing for the Sycamores, man. And now LaRavia's out there playing with the Lakers.
Yeah.
Alongside Luka, has still yet to play a game with LeBron. But, man, I didn't realize, okay, we were so close to having someone that you can Jake LaRavia, Larry Bird, one and the same, man.
I mean, both tall white boy shooters from Mid-America. There are more similarities there than people would want to. No, I'm not saying Jake LaRavia is going to be a top 20 NBA player of all time, but
that's why we have Conor O'Neill on the show, guys, is for tidbits like that here on Locked On Blue Devils. Last thing before we go. A little bit later this afternoon, some decisions set to be made on the recruiting trail for Duke basketball. Both Austin Goosby and Cam Williams, who have been on official visits to Duke this fall, set to make a decision.
Goosby rescheduled.
Rescheduled. Okay. Just Cam Williams. What I was going to set up here is that does it feel like Goosby was trending in the Duke direction? Could be wrong there. We'll see how it all plays out. Cam Williams, though, we feel good. Live podcasting, folks. Here we are.
I don't have anything official, or I don't even have like a logged prediction, like the FutureCast stuff. I want to have actual information if I put those in. I don't have that. Maybe I get it. Maybe I don't. It looks good. Like I need to go back and do the numbers on this. It feels like most people that Duke brings to Countdown to Craziness, Duke gets. There was the countdown a couple years ago that Cooper Flagg came to. I think VJ Edgecombe was the only one of like 6 or 7 that they brought that night who did not wind up being at Duke. And this year at Countdown, it was Cam Williams and Jordan Smith Jr. So cautiously optimistic at this point. I think it's a Duke lean. Arizona is right there. Texas, it feels like, is a little bit of a distant third, but don't have a heart attack if that's the pick. But at this point, I lean a little bit to the Duke side.
We see Goosby's rescheduled to Monday, so just hold on tight a few extra days, and you'll figure out exactly where Austin Goosby heads there for Duke, or possibly BYU, Baylor, Texas in the mix there for that 6'5" guard out of the state of Texas. So Cam Williams a little bit later today. We'll see if he joins the Brotherhood and commits to the Blue Devils. Connor, I know that you've got plenty of work ahead with Indiana State basketball against Duke a little bit later this evening, Duke football against Virginia. Tell folks about Devils Illustrated and how they can get involved. How in the world can these fine folks support you, Connor?
Yeah, come on over to Devils Illustrated. Great coverage. Guys, there's stories flowing up, multiple stories every day. It's original content. It's not AI-generated crap. It's not clickbait. You're going to learn something new, hopefully, is what I want you to go into every article thinking. And I want you to be entertained. I want you to like what you're reading. Even if it's not the glazing of Duke, even if it's something that might not be favorable to Duke. I want you to enjoy it because it's coming from an objective point of view.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the time today, Connor, and we'll chat again here soon, okay?
Sounds great. Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Conor O'Neill joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Please go support his work. Devils Illustrated, part of the On3 Network. Great work covering Duke athletics. Thank you for your support with us here on Locked On Blue Devils. Again, our Friday show here, getting set for Duke basketball a little bit later tonight against Indiana State, and a major football game on Saturday, tomorrow, against Virginia for Manny Diaz and company. All right, be sure to subscribe to us wherever it is that you get your podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Follow us on X at @LO_Blue Devils. Go Duke! I'll talk to you on Monday. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.